Hi. Hi. So I just want to say thank you very much to the RIBA for inviting me. As introduced, I'm Sarah Park. I'm from a company called Holistic. We are a communications consultancy. We specialise in supporting companies across the built environment, including obviously architecture practices, with their external and internal communications so that they can deliver the right messages to the right people. And we also support them with their business development. So what I'm going to do today is talk to you through a few tools on how you can help seek and win new opportunities. Now, you may be asking, why do we need a series of tools? Why do we need to do business development? Historically, across the built environment, across any professional practices, whether you be architecture or legal, etc., historically you didn't have to do business development. You either had people to do that for you, but essentially you were allowed to get on with your role. And not have the responsibility of necessarily winning work. And also winning work was a very different concept historically. It was all to do with very close contact with boys and girls clubs, etc. But these days, in this very, very competitive market, you have to go out and you have to be far more proactive. And you'll find that a lot of you now have that responsibility to do so, and it doesn't always sit comfortably with people. So what we're going to explore today is I'm going to give you a few tools on where you can and how you can start your business development program. So the presentation workshop is going to focus on three areas. The first area is how people buy people. People think that business development is a huge black cauldron of kind of strategy, and there is strategy in there, but it's about buying people, and it's about selling yourself and selling what you do to create those new opportunities. It's about how to network effectively. We'll come on to networking, which is everybody's favourite topic, and it's giving you the right tools on how to go out and meet new people. And it's about creating a business development strategy so you can make your contacts and you can make your direction targeted and focused. So the first thing I want to talk about is the business development blockers. Now, if I could just ask, because obviously this is an interactive workshop, so you will be working during this session. Can I ask how many of you actually go do business development at the moment or have that responsibility or know you're going to be doing it soon? Brilliant. Okay, so a lot of you. Great. And can I ask, and I want you to be honest, how many of you feel that you don't necessarily have the right tools in place, you don't have the right direction? Okay, so about half of you. So I'm going to start picking on people unless somebody wants to speak first. I want to know what those blockers are, and I want to know what kind of feelings you have about the business development in your role. So is anybody going to start? Yes, it's over there. Hi. Time. Right, okay. And when you say time, what do you mean? How do you fit that into your... Okay, and does other people feel the same thing? It's that time element. So you mentioned that you had your own practice. Is that right? So how many do you have in your practice? Okay. And are all three of you doing the business development, or is it just you? Okay. Okay. And would it help if the other two did more business development? Okay. Well, I think one of the problems that people have, and actually it doesn't matter what size of practice, because with my client base, I work with people who are sole practitioners. I work with people between 3 and 10 members of staff, and I also work with far bigger companies as well, with up to 300 people. And the main problem, especially with the smaller practices, is the time spent on training to do business development and the time spent gearing people up for it. People just think, well, you know what, I'll just do it myself, and I'm the owner. It's my responsibility. But really, business development is about being a shared responsibility. And this is why you're all here, because whether you are owning your own practices or whether you're bigger, or you are part of a far bigger practice, it has to be down to you as well as part of that company. So I think my advice in regards to time, if you own your own practice and there aren't a vast amount of you, it's about committing time to putting in a development training program with the other members of the team. And it might be that, I'm not saying myself, it might be you bring somebody in, or you might do it yourself. And it's about sharing the business development strategy with people and understanding, and hopefully this will give you some tools that you can take away, obviously. And it's about talking to them about what you want them to do, what they're expected to do as part of your practice, and about going out and meeting people, because you can't shoulder responsibility on your own, especially if you're trying to grow your own practice. You have to do the work otherwise. Now, you have to balance the two, but it is about sharing responsibility. And with the fact that so many of you are here, it's testament that your senior management team want you to share that responsibility as well. So if you own your own practice, it's about committing, say, 2 or 3 days to training people, or even a day, but giving them some top tips. And also I'll give you some tools later about where you can find channels to go and to work, to do business development. So that's time. Has anybody else got anything they want to say about time, or any other issues that they have, blockers they feel that they're facing with BD? Yes, at the back, please. Right, so you're saying that because of lack of internal communication, there isn't a strong direction. Right, so, okay. So very common in the bigger practices, and it's less because with the smaller practices, it's usually a time issue because, you know, you haven't got time to start teaching people about the business development strategy, you might as well get out and do it. In the bigger practices, and I'm going to try not to speak out of turn here, you tend to be siloed off. You have your comms team, you have your business development team, you have your senior management team, and they all seem to know what they're doing, and they have a business development strategy in place, and they know what type of work they want to go and attract, and we'll come on to that later. And they expect you to go and do the same thing, but they don't always share this information with you. Some practices, and again, I'm going to speak out of turn, don't actually know what they're trying to achieve, and especially in the markets or the environment we've had over the past few years, it's been quite scattergun. So you'll get some companies who feel, Christ, we just need to win money. We just need to win work, we need to bring money in, and you're not quite sure where they're targeting. But all I can say is if it is your responsibility to take part in business development and start winning your own work, then you need to speak to your senior partner or your manager, the person who's line managing you and who has these expectations of you, and you need to ask them what the business development strategy is. Now, there are tools that you can use that we'll go on to, but it's about finding out the best targets. You know, what are the sector growth areas that you want to develop? You know, what are the projects or the significant projects that you want to win? What kind of practice do you work in? Is it commercial? Is it public sector? Is it education focused? So where exactly does the business development, where does the strategy lie, and how can you help support that? One of the problems, because you've been given this responsibility to do it, you will get instruction to just go out and meet people and just go out and win work, but often you might not get the right direction. And you can ask for the right direction because it's impossible to expect you to do it without having the tools and without having the knowledge, because then you're just speaking to anybody about anything and you realize it's not fitting into what is the business development strategy. Anybody else with any comments about what's hindering them in the process? Or that's okay. So in terms of the analytics, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know. We don't use software tools analytics. If you're talking about business development analytics and where you need to win work, I mean, that is looking at the business strategy. I mean, you will have your own expertise in your practice, and you'll be a particular practice, and you know whether commercial office is doing, or whether you want to go into student residential. And so it's about understanding where the money is coming from. I mean, we actually have, because we're not a big company, and we have quite a, I don't want to use the word basic, but we track all our leads, and it's just using Excel, and we have a CRM, so using Salesforce. We combine the two together, but we make sure we know whether things are coming through from referrals, or whether it's from contacts, or whether if we go to MIPIM, how many people, we have a cost of how much it costs us to go to MIPIM and do new business, and how much we're bringing in, how much work we're bringing in from those introductions. So it's about tracking at the end of every quarter where the money's coming from. Is it because it is repeat business? And if so, are you winning any money from going out and networking? And that will give you a real, and you can do this in quite a basic way. So you don't, I would say, depending on the size of your company and how sophisticated you want it to be, you don't necessarily need to go and spend a fortune on software. It's just about keeping a track and a database of exactly what you're bringing in and where it's coming from. Because if you've got a marketing budget and you're spending, 10 grand a year on tickets to go to certain networking events like Movers and Shakers, which takes place every 6 weeks, and it's good value. But if you're spending a load of money on that, but you're not bringing any money in because you're not making any contacts there, then you've got to ask yourself, well, it's good for educational purposes because Movers and Shakers is great as a learning platform, but actually we don't meet anybody. So shall we expect that to be somewhere where we will win work? So it's about tracking and understanding, and then if things aren't working, get rid of it or put it down the tier priority list and concentrate on something else. Does that help? I avoided slightly the software question. You'll have noticed that. Anybody else have any other blockers that they want to raise about business development, either in a smaller practice or a larger practice, or their role? Okay, good question, which actually leads me on to my next slide. So, knowing where to start. So, in answer to your question, across the built, the built environment is a massively incestuous environment, in marketplace. So everybody knows something. There's a lot of contacts. Now, what I would say as a starting approach, and you can do this if you don't know the business development strategy. If you don't have access to your line manager straight away to find out the details, you can start at a very basic level and get used to business development practices by starting with people that you know. Now, as architects, you'll have a lot of contacts, but you'll also be working on site as well. So you actually have this amazing client list and sort of contact list of clients and project partners that you're working with on a daily basis. So it's about starting with them. You might see them on a daily basis and work with them on a particular project, but it's going one step further and saying, okay, well, do you fancy going out for a coffee? Do you fancy going out for lunch? And I know it sounds quite simplistic, but business development, there is strategy behind it. It's not actually rocket science when you get into the activity. It's about people buying people. So start with people that you know. And also, it's a good practice bed as well before you go out and really targeting cold, sort of high targets, for example, which is sort of a bit of another session. But if you start with people you're working with on a daily basis on site and saying, okay, well, you know what, you fancy a beer after work, then you can start having those conversations with them about the next project. It's always about thinking about the next project. What are they working on? What am I working on? And what information can we share? So it's about tapping into the people you know, and also using social media, going on to networking, which we'll talk about more shortly. But face-to-face, massively important, going out with people, meeting them at networking events, but also using your LinkedIn tools. They say that like 30% of new business can be won through LinkedIn. And we get people coming through to us looking for our services through LinkedIn because we're quite active. But most companies, though everybody has a LinkedIn profile, they don't tend to update it. They don't make comments. A lot of people make fatuous comments. You don't want to do that. But it's about using it and finding out who knows who. And you'll notice that, especially in the built environment, you'll be 3 steps away from somebody who actually would be quite important to you. So if you know someone who knows them on LinkedIn, then you ask for an introduction. And it's about doing it once and seeing what happens. There's a button there that says, help me make an introduction. And I don't, everyone I speak to doesn't use it because there's a barrier. They feel as though they shouldn't be encroaching. But LinkedIn is a perfect platform to say, you know what, I want to know that person. They've got a great project apparently in the pipeline. I'd like to get to speak to them. And my friend or my, someone I know knows them. Let's go out, the 3 of us, and have lunch, have a beer, have whatever. So it's about starting with easy wins and easy hits. Company run events. There's no reason why, irrespective of what side practice you have, there's no reason why you can't have your own events. Now, if you have a big marketing budget, your marketing team can sort something out. You can invite 100 guests, ask them to invite prospects, put on a conference, put on a theme about residential, etc., and bring people together and be seen as a facilitator and also have a platform where members of your team can network with various people who are targeted. If you have a smaller practice and you don't have that big marketing budget, there's no reason why you can't invite 3 clients out for dinner and have those conversations about what they're doing next. So it's all about saying, well, how can I position my company as somebody who wants to go out there, who is happy to make introductions with other people, happy to bring people together? Because actually all the people you want to meet, they want to meet other people as well. So if you can be seen as a facilitator and open up your company to say, well, we're going to bring people together and talk about what's happening in the marketplace, then you'll have far more opportunity to widen that circle of context. And then social engagements across, and that's the built environment. Property industry, massively social. You will have, for example, the London to Cannes cycle ride, just pre-MIPIM. So that's attended by hundreds of people every year, and they set off like 3 days before MIPIM and cycle together. And a lot of people do, microphone, sorry, there you go. A lot of people do this, because they love cycling, getting fit, but also it's a great way to meet people because you're doing it in a social environment. Business development is not all about work and you just selling your expertise. JLL, they do their annual triathlon, so it's about getting involved because once you start having fun with different people and then you find out there's this massive developer who, in residential, then you start quids in. Okay. So I know I'm probably making this all sound very simple, that you should all go away and just pick up a phone and have lunch. But it isn't actually, when you get started, any more difficult than that. I do strongly believe that people buy people. And if I could break it down into sort of 5 strands about initial business development and engagement with others, it's about being personable. It's about showing an interest in other people and talking about yourself personally, getting to know them personally as well as professionally. It's about being knowledgeable because although we're saying this, you don't actually want to go out and make a load of new friends. That's not the point. The point is to seek new opportunities. So it's about demonstrating your expertise, whether it be on site or whether it be verbally at a networking event. It's about being an advocate and a champion of your company. These days, people don't necessarily just run after value for money. They want to work with companies that treat their employees well, that have the same strong ethos that they do, that are socially responsible. So talk about the company you work for with people and get people excited and kind of enthused about what you do. And then ask the right questions. This is an important one because people are actually quite afraid to move the conversation forward. So you've met somebody, an event, you're talking to somebody on site, and people are quite nervous about saying, okay, so what are you working on next? What's next for you in the pipeline? Or do you have an architect? There's nothing wrong in actually being quite direct and asking those questions. People expect it. You're not all looking for a load of mates. You're looking for people to do business with. So there's nothing wrong in crossing the boundary from personal and conversation to actual business conversation. And then it's about building relationships, maintaining contact, and follow-up. You'll see follow-up mentioned quite a few times across the presentation because there is no point in doing any of this at all if once you've made a contact and actually had quite a good conversation with someone for 20 minutes, you don't ever contact them again. Because business development can take years. And we actually, we pitched to a client an agent about 3 months ago, which we were successful, and they've been 2 years in the making because they've not been the right time, but we've been maintaining follow-up. And it doesn't mean, it's about just engaging with them and having lunch every now and then and just seeing what they're up to. So it's massively important. So, win work by being an architect. Now, you are actually at a great position for business development in regards to the work that you do on site. Repeat business is a key element of the new business strategy, and the contacts that you make is absolutely integral to developing the strategy and to winning work because repeat business is so important. The conduct that you have on site, the way that you are, the personality that you have, the way that you engage with all your partners on site and across the built program will make a difference to whether they want to work with you again or not. And if they want to work with you, then it's absolutely brilliant. But always be thinking about the next project. Always be thinking about the contracts you're working with the client, the QS. What is it? What kind of relationship can I build with them to make them say to a potential client, well, yeah, I'd love to work with such an architect because they're great on site, they're really personal, we have a good working relationship. So always make sure that on site you're the best you can be and you're promoting the work that you do and the company. And every member of the built environment in the food chain may have a good relationship. So it's not just about always looking towards the ultimate client. It's about working with all project partners. So, networking. So I take it because obviously there's a show of hands about people that you do business development. So do many of you network? Do you go out to events across the property industry? Show of hands. How many people enjoy it? Oh, yeah, wonderful. Oh, well, that's good. That's good. I'm glad. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your fears, though, because we had quite a few people who put their hands up and a few people who put their hands down about the networking. What is it that makes you not enjoy it as much as you perhaps should? Who's going to start? You. Thank you. Oh, yes. Right. And what makes you think that you do? Because you're not a salesperson, so what approach do you take? Can I ask, do you feel that when you go networking that the whole reason you're doing is you have to sell yourself and you have to win some work? I mean, do you have that feeling as you walk in? It's kind of, here we go. Okay. Well, I think it's really good that you had that session on business USPs, because I think it's important if you go out representing your company, then you should know what you are. And I know that sounds silly. I mean, you know your company, you're an architect, you know what your target, what you develop, what you deliver. But there's nothing wrong in having almost an elevator pitch that you understand. You don't have to trot it up. So you have that. Some people might say you should be, using all those key messages and using those USPs. I personally don't always agree with that, because you'll go from being this lovely, bubbly person talking about what you did at the weekend and this amazing art gallery, and then they'll say, what do you do? And you suddenly turn into a robot and start saying, we are brilliant, we are very social. And it's just a bit weird. And I think the problem with networking is that you have this pressure that I've got to sell who I am and my company. But it's going back to selling who you are, because I think the best kind of conversation and networking you can do, either meeting a group of people or just one-on-one, is to just start talking about, I'm not being facetious when I say the canapes, but you can engage with people on a very personal level that isn't about work. And before you know it, if you're bonding or getting on, then you can be talking about anything for 20 minutes and having a kind of a good laugh. And then at some point, someone will say, well, look, what do you do? And, oh, what have you been working on? And you can turn it into a business conversation. But I would always, always recommend that you just be as natural as you possibly can. Now, you don't want to go in and say, oh, well, they don't pay very well. And that's kind of, against the whole, ethos of it. But I would avoid going in with a series of key messages in your head. And I would avoid going in thinking, I have now got to win a load of work from people. I have now got to sell myself so well that people are going to phone up and say, right, that's it, we've got a project, we want you on it. It very rarely happens that way. What usually happens is that you make, you get 5, 6, 7, whatever, business cards in an evening, but a few people will stand out, and then you can do the follow-up next day. But it's to have an engaging conversation with you, because that's what people will remember, because they know what architects do, and they know, the areas you work in. And they could probably have hundreds on their books, and, they can choose whoever they want. But if they have a good relationship with you and they've enjoyed talking to you, then that means you can take it to a next step, and you can drop them a line and say, really good. And actually, you mentioned X, Y, Z. Do you want to meet up and just talk a bit further about that? So I would always, at some point, bring it back to a business context about what they're working on, what you're working on. But I wouldn't necessarily go in feeling, right, I have got to sell, and I've got to sell my company. So I think good to understand what your company vision is, but I would just be very relaxed about it and not have the pressure of selling, because it's unlikely anyone's going to phone you the next day anyway and say, let's work together. It's usually an incremental step that you can build on. Anybody else had any fears about networking? Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good comment, because there's different types of networking, and networking with your peers, it's extremely safe. And everyone's like, oh yeah, I don't mind networking with peers, because they're all your peers. You know that you'll know most of them, and they're all your mates. And you know that there's no real pressure to get work. It's when someone says to you, right, actually, we've got 2 tickets to Movers and Shakers at 7:30 at the Grosvenor Hotel in Park Lane with all the developers and Exemplar and Barrett and everybody. We want you to go and mingle with them. That's when most people just think, oh my God, they're not going to want to talk to me at all. So it's about looking at the networking program. And I don't know, if you have a smaller practice, then maybe this is something you do on your own. If you have a communications team, they should have all this information. I mean, there are so many events taking place across the built environment annually, from the tiny ones that, you have to kind of find them, to the bigger annual events. So your comms team will have all this information. It's about putting your name down for them, or going out and, just proactively seeking them out. Yes, there are a load of architectural events. You're not going to win work there. You'll meet good contacts. I'm not saying don't do them. But what I'm saying is target the ones where you can mingle with people. They're usually more expensive. We've just had Resi, for example. And I think a delegate ticket is like £2,000 or something. So it's not cheap. But it puts you in Cardiff for 3 days with a lot of Resi developers. So if that's your area, that's where you should be going. Now, we try and get our clients for speaking opportunities there, and it's difficult because it's all about developer. But if you can spend 3 days with them, then you're going to meet somebody you can have a connection with. That's the aim. So it's about looking at the program and targeting the right things and going after the people. I'm going to talk a little bit more about strategy, about looking at the people you want to go after. Does that help? Cool. Anybody else? Nobody want to talk about standing on their own, feeling a bit nervous? Yes, good. Who said that? Stand up on your own and tell me who that was. Yeah. I know exactly. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Sometimes networking does suck. I mean, sometimes it's quite hard because you go on your own And you open the doors, and there's all these people that potentially are going to win your work, and you've got responsibility to do it and talk to them, and you just think, where am I going to start? Because they know what I'm after. But we have to do it. I mean, this is why we're all here. This is part of the program. And this is why I'm giving so much emphasis on the be yourself and be personable. Because yes, as soon as you walk in and say you're an architect and you're a developer, they know what you want. But actually, if you engage them and you have a conversation and you keep away from the sales techniques and you keep away from sort of asking too many questions, what are you doing, and being pushy, and just be yourself, then you might have 5 or 10 minutes conversation with someone, and then you will part ways. And you might swap business cards, which is always kind of polite, which is what we do anyway, and you can do a follow-up. I wouldn't feel a fraud because it is business, and we're all doing the same thing, and everybody feels the same. When you walk into a room and you see people, and I've done it, it's like, oh my God, a really important email. I must just stand here for 10 minutes looking at it. I mean, it can be awful. But everybody feels the same, that kind of anxiety. Who am I going to talk to? Is he the right person? What am I going to say? And the best thing to do is just remember that we're all human beings and start off with something relatively personal and just, small talk, and not feel as though you have to start selling your business and what you do. Take an interest in other people. Ask them what they're doing, but don't be pushy about it. Think about how you would like to be treated and how you would like to be approached. And in regards to that kind of going in and feeling like a fraud, and if everybody knows people and they're all talking to each other, sometimes you have to go in and just bite the bullet and approach a group and say hi. I mean, there are all these techniques about how you stand, open-bodied and everything. And no one does. They all stand in their little circles, and you just have to kind of muscle in. But don't feel that you have to go in with any kind of hard sell. And you're not a fraud. You're not a fraud. It's business. That's why we're all there. We wouldn't otherwise spend Thursday night at some bar in the city with a load of developers, would we? But anyway, anybody else? Anyone else? No? All right. So networking. So where to start? So just a few tips on how we can start the process. In regards to networking events, which you should find out what they are. And like I said, you can either do that through research, or if you have a comms team, you should be asking them to do it. And you should be asking your comms team, what networking events have we got in our schedule for our company over the next 12 months? That will give them a job. They'll go, oh, well, just find it for you. I'll call you back in 10 minutes. And then think, God, we haven't got one. And they'll be running around. But you should ask them for it because there's loads out there and they'll be earmarking them, or they should be earmarking them for your companies to attend. Now, the networking events that take place, if you are given one to go to, I use Moves and Shake as an example. It's like, okay, earmarks, such a person, you're going on Thursday morning. They always send out a delegate list. So make sure you get hold of the delegate list. Use it to your advantage and have a look, like I said, a few days beforehand, and find out the people who you know who are going, find out the people who you want to meet who are going, and email them. Drop them a line. We met a few weeks ago. I understand you're going to Moves and Shakes on Thursday morning. Do you want to meet up for a coffee? And if you can do that, and there are 200 people on that list, if you can find 4 or 5 people who are going, then that gives you something to do and people to approach. Now, you can go one step further and do a bit of a cold approach. And this session, it doesn't really talk about the cold approaches. But if you really wanted to work with a particular person or a particular company and you see that someone from that company is going, then you can send a cold email to them and just say, right, you're going, I'm going, I'd love to have a coffee with you, and do you want to catch up? And write a little bit about yourself in the email and see what happens. And more often than not, they will bite and say, yeah, you know what, I'm there, so why not? And it doesn't matter where they are in the company, but just getting that foot in means that you can start working through and getting to the person you want to, or, creating an opportunity within the company you want to target. Network with a colleague or a contact where possible. Going on your own isn't the best. It kind of pushes you to do more. It pushes you to go and talk to people more. What you don't want to do is network with a colleague and just stand on your own, the two of you chatting and, having a laugh. But it just gives you that safety net, so you can go off and talk to people and then come back when you need to, rather than stand on your own. So I always recommend going in pairs. It's just easier, to be honest. Don't think you need to sell. Go in and be personal. Smile and think positively. And I know this sounds very trite, but if you look nervous and feel nervous, you will look nervous. No one will approach you. If you look open, people actually do come and talk to you. So do think positively about it. It's important to be professional and personal. As we said, you want to get personal with people as well as talking about your expertise and talking about the company and what you're doing. Connect on LinkedIn. Once you have met somebody, connect with them and then always, always follow up. If you meet 5 people and just have a few minutes with them each, You never know what might happen in 6 months. Within 6 months, you might have seen them all 4 times again, and you might be well on the way onto a tender or something like that. You'll be surprised at how many people spend so much money going to MIP him, and I'll talk to them a month later, and I'll say, have you followed up with all those 20 cards that you got? And you siphoned them, you did everything, you tiered them. Have you contacted everyone, and you spent 10 grand on MIPing? Oh, no, I haven't contacted them yet. It's ridiculous. You need to follow up. Oh, sorry, that wasn't it. Right. Okay, and also, you have an advantage being architects. So, you're actually the first in the food chain behind the developer. So, especially, obviously, under traditional contract. Right, okay, I'm going to wrap this up. So, you're actually going to be you're going to be an attractive bunch of people to talk to. Most people will think that. So, you probably won't be left on your own for long. And 2, you're designers, so you're relatively interesting. I mean, you could be QSs or something. I mean, you're in quite a good position. So don't feel, too worried about it. Right. So it's all very well doing the networking. It's all very well going out doing the business development. But as you mentioned before, if you don't have the strategy, then, how can you start? If you're going to develop a new opportunities or new income strategy, you have to start with a business plan and identify your goals. Now, you have to be quite specific, because if you spend too much time doing business development and you're scattergunning it, then that's going to turn into a problem, because you'll just start running after opportunities and wasting your time and money doing tenders on RFPs that just aren't going to go anywhere and not right for your business. Identify the type of work that you want to make your business grow, the type of clients that you want to work with that will bring the right amount of value and the right kind of money and the right kind of schemes for you. The type of projects, what sectors and project values. You have to understand where it is you want to go, your financial goals, and how you feel you will get there in what sectors. The more specific the goals, the stronger the business development platform. The weaker it is and the more vague, you will end up just chasing everybody and wasting valuable time. So please dedicate some time to creating a proper strategy on how you want to grow and where you think the growth is going to come from and how you can deliver it. Create the prospect list of the type of companies, type of clients, but then bring them down to specific companies. And they may be massive companies you think, well, do you know what? I would absolutely love to work with these at this stage. I don't think they would even look at us. But you never know what might happen in 5 years' time. If you start your trajectory of growth and you want to attract a certain type of company and client, in 5 years you might get there. So tier them. Have a look at all the different companies, tier them from short to medium to long-term goals, the short-term hits that you feel you can go and attract, the medium, and then the long-term. And then create that timeline for growth and set the financial goals. Use people you know. Massive importance. If you go in cold, it's quite a long, hard slog. Identify mutual contacts, built environment, you all know each other. Use LinkedIn, or when you find the client, the ideal client you want to work for, then find someone who knows them, because you can guarantee that you will know someone. And as soon as they say yes, you can ask them for a referral program. If it is a project partner or a client, they might be good enough to say, hey, listen, you should use these guys because they're absolutely great. Or you can just say, can you set me up and have that introduction? And most people will say yes. So rather than trying to think that you have to do all this yourself, use the people you know. One of the things that we do at Holistic is we have a big stakeholder mapping database where all of us pool our contacts. So if I want to look at somebody here, then I just find out who knows them and which clients know them, and we can start up either the referral program or the introduction. The thing about the referral program is that it's great when people recommend you, but you cannot pester your clients or your partners to recommend you all the time, as in especially for one person. Have you spoken to me? Have you referred us? So you might want to ask your contacts to refer you, but it's the introductions that are really important, because you can say, really want to get to them, can you sort out lunch? And, hopefully they'll do it for you. Use social media. LinkedIn, massively important. It is one thing that I would say, we're going to come on to the 5 things, but yeah, use your LinkedIn and start making those contacts with people. If cold and you do find a prospect that you want to go after and you can't find anybody who knows them, then craft an approach that is certainly not generic. And that goes the same for any kind of e-shots that you're sending out to your clients. If you're working cross-sector, commercial office, residential, education, don't send all your clients or prospects the same content, because they're not interested. If you're going to target people cold, then you have to do it in a target-specific way. You have to give them a reason to want to meet you, and you have to give them, the email has to be about them and how interested you are in them, rather than what you're doing. Going back to the selling point, don't sell yourself. And then follow up, which I've said many, many times. And I think, right, sorry, one more. Once you've done all this, and you're doing your network and your business development, in fact, leave today and look at your website. Because if you are meeting people in a networking environment, or in a referral environment, or you had an introduction, what they will do is they will go back to their office and they will look at you and they will check you out on your website. And if your website is not up to scratch, then it just undermines all the good work that you've done. Because you're talking, I imagine when you've met them, about expertise, and you're talking about productivity, you're talking about the kind of person you are in your company. But if your website does not reflect that, then it's a bit of a damp squib. And your website is a perfect platform to create the right messages and showcase the right messages and use the right images. So please have a look at that as your front door. So 5 things to take away. Update your LinkedIn profile. Think seriously about who you want to target. And if you need to speak to somebody about their business development plan and strategy, then do talk to them, because if you're expected to do BD and networking, you need to know who you're looking after, who you're going after. Start with the people you know and the people you're working with. Go out and network, and always follow up. Thank you.